Welcome back, everyone. That was a fantastic session. Andrew, thank you very much. We're welcoming everybody online. He's very excited to continue this discussion. I want to let you know that right now in this session, I'm going to propose a challenge to you. And then today at 3 o'clock, we're going to have a workshop, the Black Hole Value Proposition Workshop. So those of you who want to take this more personal to your hospice, I welcome you in for that workshop. I don't expect it to be a big room. It could be 3 or 4 people just sitting down and saying, all right, let's go through this in its application towards you. So that's going to be something that we'll follow up this afternoon. I'm really excited about it. So let's talk a little bit about that. Last night we had stargazing. Someone brought a big telescope and a monitor and he talked about black holes, right? What is a black hole? Does anyone know? Jordan.
According to Mark last night, it is a portion of space where gravity is so strong that light cannot escape.
That is exactly right. A black hole is a region in space-time where gravity, great job, Jordan, great job. You get an A+. It's the hair. It's the brilliance. All the brilliance is in the hair today. So
Eggs Benedict does for you. I want that.
we need to keep that slide shut. Okay. A black hole is a region in space-time where gravity is so strong that nothing can escape it, not even light. I would propose to you today that every great organization needs what is called the black hole value proposition. A black hole value proposition is a strategic conversion, not happenstance, not by luck, a strategic conversion of solutions. So strong, so fantastic that no competitor can match it. Isn't that exactly what we want? You know, I see these organizations all over that come to Sono and I say, you are so close. You are so good. You're right at the doorstep of having a black hole value proposition. And I see a true black hole value proposition very rarely. We're going to talk about some companies that have great value propositions, really, really black hole, where people are drawn to them. It's almost an unfair advantage. They've done such a great job. Okay, what does a black hole value proposition provide for you? It creates crazy excitement in the community. Every community that has great organizations love to talk about those organizations. It's a pride thing. It's something they're so excited about. So it creates excitement in the community. It's a story that everyone wants to tell. It's an entity where it attracts people to want to be a part of it, and it draws influencers in to be a part and be associated with it. People that are consultants, people that are advisors, people that are referral sources want to refer to you. It is an obvious choice for consumers, clients, and patients, and it improves the total industry. Wouldn't you like to be an organization where you are the obvious choice for consumers, clients, and patients? Yes? Me too. Okay. So what are the keys to a black hole value proposition? This is probably the most important thing for you to grasp out of all of this. It is a clear and discernible differentiator. Now let's talk about a couple of examples right here. Heart and Home, Todd was just sitting here just a moment. Heart and Home is absolutely right on the doorstep of a black hole value proposition. And here's why. I could not believe when I went to see them the first time and toured their training facility and their simulation labs and then talked about the perfect visit. It was a difference between talking about something perfect and creating a process that makes a perfect visit. Talking about a perfect visit is really cute. It's fantastic. It's adorable. It's a waste of time. Unless you are building a system that really achieves the perfect visit. When you go in there and you go in and there's a studio, there's a person back with a background screen in the training, and it looks like an East Coast Ivy League training facility. There are tables and chairs and people sitting there, and for 28 days or 20 days, they study and they learn. Then you go to another area and there's a simulated living room, a couch or sofa, pillows, a chair, carpet, fixtures on the walls, and they learn how to give a perfect visit in a real-time scenario. That's how it's achieved. They are so close to a black hole value proposition that I just cannot believe it. I'll tell you one that's next. A simple messaging showcasing the value proposition. Crossroads Hospice has that. They have 3 words that make it clear what is their black hole value proposition. Now, whether they do or do not have the perfect system for it, that's for anyone to decide. But I believe they are extremely close to having a black hole value proposition because they have a thing called even more care. 3 words that are simple and clear that allow anybody to be able to communicate what is their value proposition without having to say, well, they have a simulation lab. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Before the simulation lab, they have a training facility, and then they train for 28 days. And everybody has to be trained perfectly on the testing. And when they're trained perfectly, then they go to the simulation lab. And then they go through that. And then we tie their compensation. You see how that's too much? I'm not talking about what we build. I'm talking about what we communicate in the marketplace and what the marketplace says about you. You can build a black hole value proposition only when the marketplace starts talking about you in a simple way that it's easy for them to communicate. The community knows exactly who you are and why. The constituents know exactly how to communicate that to you. And it's simple, it's clear, and it's discernible. Okay, consistent delivery of the value proposition is critical. You have to build a system that allows you consistent delivery of the value proposition because no one really built a black hole value proposition overnight. There are a lot of people that are overnight millionaires. Isn't that the biggest lie you've ever heard? Oh my God, I love hearing that because it just screams ignorance. When somebody says, oh, they became an overnight success. Bullshit. Let's talk about, here's what. Let's talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. Okay, I know people that read about Bitcoin way in advance and heard about it. They studied it, they read, they scoured the internet to try to find out what it was. Then they built a system on their own computer that allowed them to be part of Bitcoin, and they got early Bitcoins at $10 a piece. And so they had $100 because they had no money, so they bought 10. They borrowed some money, bought 20 more. So they had 300, or maybe in this case, 30 Bitcoins that everyone's telling them, you're crazy. And then all of a sudden, Bitcoin comes over. Did they become instant millionaires? No. It took them a lot of research, a lot of work, a lot of dedication. Most people become instant millionaires by 20 years of hard work. Having a very consistent delivery of the value proposition is exactly how you get to that black hole value proposition. Okay. Passionate, crazy, sold out, ridiculous employees. I'm going to propose to you a different methodology for recruiting here in a moment. And I think it's going to be very much in line with Andrew. We did not collaborate on our discussions today. I just know enough about him to say we're aligned. Okay, who's the world champion? Jordan, who's the world champion of black hole value propositions? Am I wrong? No, they are the world champion of black hole value proposition. Here's some proof. Here's some metrics that prove that they're good. 48 million visitors per year, 23,000 guest rooms on their properties, $1 billion invested in the Magic Band system. And does anyone know how many Mickey Mouse characters are on site per site? Who can tell me? No one can tell you because they never let that secret out. That is something that they never tell. They have a black hole value proposition where people are drawn to them like crazy because they strategically aligned everything under one thing, to have a magic experience. What is Disney? It's a magical experience. Isn't that what they say? Yes. All right, let's talk about something simpler. I got on the internet months ago and tried to find out how many restaurants are there in the world. I couldn't find out. I could find out that there are 38,000 Subways. That I could find it, but there's no chance I could tell you how many total restaurants are in the world. But I can tell you by the ranking who's number one and why. All right, number one restaurant in Los Angeles, 3 chefs, 24 seats, a waiting list of 1 year. Urasawa in Los Angeles, Japanese restaurant. Online reservations months in advance. It's $600 a person, 29 courses, and the waiting line is forever. Okay? There's a restaurant called the Fat Duck that's in the top 10 in the world. It's between London and Oxford, England, and in a city called Bray in the UK, 30,000 calls a day. Their answering machine is open 30 minutes a day, and then they're booked. 30,000 calls a day to get a restaurant. Can you imagine that? Get a reservation. Here's one that's a little more close. Franklin Barbecue in Austin, Texas. Anybody been there? 4-hour waiting line. They don't need reservations. They don't have to worry about it. Their stuff is so good. The barbecue is so good, everyone talks about it. See, think about it. If you become very good, if you're Franklin Barbecue in Austin, Texas, does your community brag about the fact that you have the best barbecue in the world? Do they brag about the fact that there's a 4-hour waiting line, or do they bitch about it? They brag about it. People stand in line for that food. I believe that there are several hospices in this room that are right on the edge. Literally, I believe, on the doorstep of a black hole value proposition. You just simply haven't taken that next step to where you hone the message, to where you have a clear and discernible value proposition and a simple way to communicate what that is, so that other people can rally around you. Instead of you pushing the message to them, they're spreading the message and you're getting the benefit from it. We're very close to that. Okay, where were you in 1972? Does anybody remember? This company, this little company, Nike shoe, came up with their very first professional running shoe. It was called the 72 Cortez. I owned that exact shoe. I love that shoe. I should have worn it today. That was my fault of lacking planning. I actually wore Adidas today, and they're brand new. Do you see how nice they are? I actually pulled them out and wear them specifically for today, just so I'd feel great about my day. But that is the 72 Cortez. They are a company. I don't know if you've read Shoe Dog, the book by Phil Knight. It's a story of their company, all their struggles, and all the ways that they went from a really struggling sales company of multiple different kinds of shoes into an organization that has one driving goal. And it's not just do it. That is a slogan. That is not a black hole value proposition. Just do it is a slogan. Their black hole value proposition is to be the most exciting athletic apparel company in the world. That's what drives them. Not highest quality, because how does a person really measure? How does the average person, the constituent, how do they measure quality? Do they measure it by fabric, like your sheets? Oh, those are 2,000 thread count. Okay. Oh, I didn't have any money, so I bought the 200 thread count. You ever slept on 200 thread count? It's like sandpaper. The only people that have those are college kids in a dorm, right? But you and I, we go out and get 500 or 700 or 1,000. That's quality. Nike is not driven by quality. That's one of the components that builds a black hole value proposition. The black hole value proposition for Nike is to be the most exciting. Exciting. That's what they want. They want somebody to walk in and go, that's cool, right? Because really, very few people feel it, touch it, stretch it, see if it's right. They buy it because it's exciting. So if I said to you, somebody tell me, fast food, first thing that comes to your mind.
In-N-Out.
In-N-Out burger, okay? Hall.
Yes.
Laptop computer.
Apple.
Good. Transportation source if you can't find a cab.
Uber.
Are these black hole value propositions? Do these kind of companies have something that everybody knows automatically? So these organizations that I listed are definitely top of class in their space. But what about hospice? Can a hospice have a black hole value proposition? Absolutely. And it comes when there's a convergence of things that are so good that you're the top of the class. But you then take the step and you find out how to communicate that in a way that other people can grab it. They can reach out and hold on to it, and they can communicate it. Those things are, of course, our service level, our care, our processes, our communication. But there's got to be one more thing. And that one more thing is the manner in which you communicate that value proposition to an ignorant populace. Now, I didn't say they were stupid. I said they were ignorant. They cannot tell you all the things that you did in the service level. They cannot tell you all the things you did in care. They cannot tell you the standards of care that you're held accountable to. They cannot tell you all the back-end processes. They don't care how much money you invested in your EMR. They don't care. And they don't know what your communication protocols are. They only know the end result of that. They are an ignorant populace. And you have to understand the ignorant populace. Okay, I found a picture of Jamie. This is my picture. I'm like, that's Jamie. I got to use one. Isn't that adorable? Doesn't that look like her in third grade? Okay, so the question is, how can I build a black hole value proposition? If you're not asking this question to yourself, one of two things is, I'm not doing my job, or you're not doing your job. So one of the two. So I hope that you're asking, how do I do that? Am I sure that I built a black hole value proposition where people are being drawn into me? It's so obvious that I'm the right choice that people don't even ask which are the best hospices. Okay, these are the three things I'm going to talk to you about today. I believe this is how you build a black hole value proposition. Number one is insight. Number two is creativity. And number three is persistence. Let's go through each one of those. All right. I believe that insight is a combination of two items, empathy and understanding. I'm going to talk a little bit about this, but I want to use Debbie Redwine as an example. Debbie, would you say to me that you're an expert in hospice?
No.
No, but have you had experience in hospice? Some. How much? Lots or little?
A little.
Very little. Can you tell me, just describe the person that you believe is the customer? Who is the customer?
The caregiver.
The caregiver. So here's a person that is, with all due respect to you, ignorant of hospice. Relatively, you're not an expert. But in your limited experience, the caregiver is the customer. Why do you say that?
Because you've either got a person that's dying or has dementia, but the caregiver is the person that deals with the hospice, that deals with the nurses, that deals with all the people, and they're the person that has to live with that. So if you don't make that person happy, you haven't done your job.
So for the sake of the people that are watching online, the caregiver is the person that deals with the hospice, is there alone when the hospice is gone, needs to be trained, needs to know all this thing. That is the customer in your mind. That is awesome. So when we really figure out insight, we have to understand something. That one of the things that you must do in order to be a great company is you have to break your constituent population into personas. How many of you have heard that term persona? A persona is it's a method of you trying to understand your customer by category. Who is my patient? What can you describe that person? What is their age? What is their demographics? What are they going through? What are they thinking about? What are their worries? This is what we do. We actually take time to write down a persona of exactly who it is that our patient is. Now, our family and friends, is that a constituent? Absolutely. Would we be a great hospice if we only paid attention to the patient and not the family or friend? No. So we write down a persona. We write up there and we say, who is the family and friend? What are they going through? What are they dealing with? I will tell you that Debbie, who I just asked, is my sister. How many did not know that? Anybody? Oh, that's great. Everybody knew that. Debbie's my sister. Our dad just went into hospice in December. It has been a terrible experience. And the reason it's terrible is because the hospice did not do anything to prepare my mother to be a caregiver. They did not even explain to her what the e-kit was or that one did exist. They didn't tell her. She said, I really need somebody that will teach me how to bathe, teach me how to toilet, teach me how to help him move around. How do I get him in and out of a chair? How do I safeguard my house from him falling down the stairs, which he's done? How do I make sure he can't get away and walk down the street when I just turn my back or go pee for a minute? They did a terrible job. And they were a brand hospice, a brand name, well-known. Absolutely, they did not understand what Heart and Home does on a daily basis. One of the value propositions, it's not the black hole value, but one of the propositions that they provide is incredible training to the family. If you understand the Heart and Home model, which is also becoming models of other really high quality hospice, is that these people have to be master trainers. They don't even hire anyone until they see them teach someone else. Because if it is one of your core values that you're going to be a great trainer, you need to be able to communicate, not just do. So hiring somebody requires them to, for Heart and Home, to vet them to make sure, are you a good teacher? Can you teach others? That's a critical component. So having the persona, and I want to say that I believe that understanding the personas in a great hospice so that you can understand who it is that you're working with is more than just the patient, more than the family member. It's also understanding the provider and understanding your employee. One of your constituents that's critical is your employee. Understanding, who is my employee? What are they going through? What are their emotional experiences when they go in the home? That's got to be part of who you are in building that hospice out. That is part of the empathy and understanding. Now you guys understand, those of you who have been around years, I've talked a lot about the difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is when you walk to the front of the edge of the cliff and you look down and somebody's down stuck in a hole. And you say, hey, how you doing? Are you stuck? And they say, yeah, I'm stuck. I'm sorry, that sucks. See ya. Empathy says, hey, are you stuck? Yes, I'm stuck. Hold on, I'll be right down there. I'll come down and help you. Empathy gets in the space of the constituents. If you've not spent enough time getting in the mindset of the constituent, you will never build a true black hole value proposition, because then you'll be delivering value and missing the mark. You don't have to miss by much to miss the entire target. Okay? My friend Jeff Walker, he's known by Duke. He was one of the founders of Oracle. He and Larry Ellison started Oracle, and he was the one responsible for building them from 200 employees to 12,000 employees and going out and finding the very best people. And he's a really interesting, wonderful guy. He said this, and we had it up on the wall for months until we moved offices. If the solution isn't obvious, it's because you don't understand the problem. Finding out your personas of the people that you're serving is really the first step in understanding what are the elements of the problem. Okay, the problem is that my mother, who's an extremely intelligent individual, does not know how to care for somebody in hospice. It's not that she's not smart. She's extremely intelligent. She just wasn't told. How would she know? So she was ignorant of the process because whoever the hospice was didn't truly understand the problem. The problem is when they leave, she felt stranded. When they walked out the door, she felt all alone. When she left, she was completely disappointed because all she wanted was to be taught. Okay? I believe that having empathy and understanding is the key to insight, and that's a huge part of understanding a real black hole value proposition. Next is creativity. And you know, I love to talk about creativity. It's my thing. It's the thing I'm most passionate about. This is the D School. This is the Innovation School and the Design School at Stanford University. And if you see, all around those little doors are little labs in there where you go in and there's paper and there's cardboard and there's pencils and there's yarn and there's tape. And people go in and build things. And they have to be taught how to be more creative and innovate. Then they all come out to this center area and they show the products that they built. And then they go back and they tear them out and they redo it. And the thing that makes this D School so great at innovation is the iterative adjustments, the consistency of change all the time. The fact that they never believe that they're done. That product is never done. It's keep changing all the time. Just like your hospice. It's never done. It continues to change all the time. When you get to a stage of excellence, you really get to a stage where you're learning for the first time all the things that you still need to change. It's the very best athlete that knows how to tweak that, knows they need to tweak. I was just watching television yesterday. Ricky Fowler, who was fourth in the world a few years ago, is going through a complete swing change. Who does that? They're fourth in the world. He's wealthy and famous. He's breaking down his swing completely, the very best. The thing that was so interesting, I mentioned Duke Walker, who came to our offices. He became a friend of mine from just a yoga ranch. We were just in shorts and t-shirts. I had no idea who he was. And we started drinking wine and became friends. And somebody said, ask him what he does for a living. I said, I'm not doing that. Come to find out, he's one of the founders of Oracle, right? And he's a super guy. So I invited him to Tulsa to play in a little golf tournament with Paul Hagen and I. And we're driving to the tournament and we're getting to know each other. And he's asking questions about technology. Can you imagine being Paul Hagen and having one of the founders of Oracle ask you questions about your technology? I mean, that is intimidating. Wow. So we get there, we play golf with this guy, and it was a pro-am. So it was Duke and Paul and I and a professional golfer trying to make it on the tour. Well, we get to the 18th hole, and we're 167 out. I've got a 6-iron. Paul's got a 7-iron. I don't remember what Duke has. But the pro stepped up, 167 out. He's got a pitchy wedge. I got it on the green, was thrilled. The pro hit it to about that far. So on the way back, Duke said to me something I'll never forget. He said, Mark, did you notice how much better the pro was than even a talented amateur? And I said, yes. He said, that's what you guys are in technology. You're talented amateurs. And if you want to take the next step, you're going to have to hire some pros. It was like, in the car, and I was like, I hope Paul's not back there crying. I mean, it was no offense. I mean, the guy that was one of the founders of Oracle called us talented amateurs, but we still were. In a lot of what I see from a marketing perspective, and no disrespect to anyone here, I see a lot of us as talented amateurs. We're right on the edge of being the very best in the entire region if we just simply do one thing. Learn how to tell our story better. I want you to think about this. I talk about this all the time in our organization. It's not what you do alone that matters. It is what you do and report that matters. If you're doing all these things that we listed earlier in your hospice and you're just absolutely fabulous at it, no one really knows. You have to tell your story. But here's the challenge. You have to tell it in a way that is so simple that the most ignorant in the population can remember it and tell their friend. That's the trick. That's where it gets difficult. Even more care. Here's what even more care is. Perry and Clayton, who started Crossroads Hospice, said, well, I don't care what the standards are. I don't care what the minimums are. This is what we believe care should be. If we're being paid every day, we should see the patient every day. If one of the criteria is be present at death, then we need to be there. And we need to be there more than 95% of the time. What's it going to take to do that? So for years, they lived on a much smaller profit margin than other hospices because their care model was so ridiculous. And so for years, they believed that there would be a time where Medicare would say, okay, time out. We're paying this daily rate, and there are certain hospices that are delivering this level of care, and others that are delivering this level of care, and they're getting paid the same or similar amounts. So what we're going to do is we're going to make everybody deliver this much care. But they didn't do that. You know what Medicare did? They simply dropped the rate. So all of a sudden, Perry and Clayton are sitting on a value proposition that says even more care with even less money. That's a challenge. You know, thinking about what Hall talked about the other day, yesterday, he talked about, thinking out as a spectrum. It was actually a cone shape, that the further you get out from today's decisions, the more you get variation. We really didn't think through that. I don't think we did a good job understanding there's a possibility that instead of demanding everybody get better, that they're just going to lower the rate. That never approached our mind. We just didn't think that way. That was our mistake. Sometimes we make mistakes in planning. Okay. So creativity is awareness of our challenge and innovation to create iterative adjustments all the time and build a culture that makes those iterative adjustments possible. Then there's number 3, persistence. This will not happen overnight. You will not say tomorrow, I'm going to have a black hole value proposition, and all of a sudden, next week, all men will be drawn unto me. That won't happen. It happens through persistence. It happens by dogged dedication to this thing. Okay. So here are my dares to you. And I want to leave this up and not go to a different slide. Recruit crazy, dedicated people at all levels. And here's what I would challenge you to do. Because you know you want crazy, dedicated people, just radical people, stop putting ads in the paper that are boring. Put an ad in the paper that says, ABC Hospice looking for crazy, radical, fun, spiritual people looking to change their life and the lives of others. No others should apply. You'll get better results. If you tell people what you want, you'll screen them out better. If you're crazy in your application process, you'll get better candidates. But I just don't think you could have the very best hospice in the world without radically crazy, fun, dedicated, nut job people. They're fabulous. Okay? I want to tell you just a second. I so engaged with Andrew right out of the bat when he said, insecure, smart people. I function kind of as a CEO. That's a really bad title. I don't like that title for 4 companies. Okay, Chris runs one of the companies. He is sweet and smart and humble and open, and he does a great job. Paul Hagen did a fabulous job until about last year when we said, Paul, don't you and I agree we've taken this about as far as we can, so let's hire Jamie to run the company because she is bright and talented and humble. This lady right over there. Then another company I hired the smartest, most insecure person I've ever met in my life. He is a freaking genius. He is so bright. The challenge is that all of that's held right here, and he didn't know how to or didn't want to pass it on to anybody else. So for 11 years, and this is my fault, for 11 years we've struggled waiting for him to break out of that insecurity and share ideas. And now this is his last week. He's moving on to greater pastures. I love him. I want the best for him. But now I'm building a different team and on a different process. And it starts with this next item. Make meetings open and don't close the doors. I'll tell you what, I think we close the doors way too much. And your employees hate the fact that that door's closed and there's something going on that they're not allowed to know. And then they find out later that there's a change that impacts them and they had nothing to do with it. I would dare you, have more meetings in an open environment. When Jonathan decided to, who's the guy that's super intelligent, when he decided to resign, we stopped using the conference room. We took out desks right out of the middle and built a conference room right out in the middle. Dry erase boards going up this week, signage is in the middle, conference table, anybody can come. There's not a doggone thing I'm going to talk about in those meetings that's not open to everybody else. Now, if I'm going to talk about employee compensation or an HR issue, that'll be private. If I'm going to talk about banking and financing and debt and payments or whatever, I'll talk to Matt about that in private. But the rest of it ought to be for everybody to hear. I think that's a daring proposal. Now, you can't do that in every case, but think about it. How can I have more of an open, engaged environment where there seems to be no secrets? Focus first on the constituents and build the process later. I think that you have to build the personas before you build the process. Find out who is your client and be empathetic of what they're going through, and then build a process that serves them, and you will be on your way to a black hole value proposition. Use creative tools to help you think outside the box. We're going to be talking about that tomorrow morning. For those of you, if this is your first time, we usually have a lot of fun. Every year we have a lot of fun with creativity. And we'll do some exercises, we'll teach you some techniques, we'll teach you some ways to be more creative, come up with more ideas. But Andrew's right. It's almost magical how creativity comes. Sometimes it comes when you're mowing the lawn. Sometimes it comes when you're walking in the woods. Sometimes it comes when you're painting a bedroom. Sometimes it comes when you're just about to fall asleep. And there's a methodology to that. There's reasons that they come. But there's also sometimes the idea comes when somebody says something and inspiration hits you. So we'll talk about that in creativity, but you need to have a very creative environment to have a true black hole value proposition. And finally, commit to doing this or die. Say, this is where we're going. We're going to figure out how to have the best messaging in the world about what we do, and we're going to push that message like crazy. Thank you. So let me open it up now. Let me open it up to you for questions. We've got enough time for a little break before we come back for an open environment. And we are this afternoon at 3 o'clock. I'm going to sit with anybody who wants to. And we're going to have to dialogue about what it is that makes you unique. See, the value proposition that you will have, a black hole value proposition, will be different for everybody in this room. It's based on your personality. I have a very good idea. I have some inklings of the way Cedar Valley could word some things to the marketplace that would be 3 or 4 words that would capture who they are, but I didn't know that until Jen spoke yesterday. Okay? I've got very good ideas about Heart and Home, about capturing just a little phrase, about ways that they could say, this is who we are. Now, do you want to know more? Now let me explain it to you. Okay? So as we get to know each other a little better and learn a little bit more about who you are as an organization, then we can help start to craft. See, Nike isn't about quality, about design, about technology. They're about excitement. And that makes sense. It's exactly where they are. Okay? McDonald's they're not number one in their space because of anything except consistency. The reason that you go to McDonald's when you're in Oxford, England is because you're tired of haggis and you want something you can rely upon. Not that it's the best burger in the world, but if you've ever been to England or anywhere around the world and you find a McDonald's, you're like, oh my God, this is fantastic. I know exactly what it's going to be. I know what the French fries are going to taste like. The onions are going to be chopped up this big. It's going to be a little mix of mustard and ketchup. Oh, 1 pickle. Hallelujah. Okay? They've got a value proposition and they stick to it. Okay, so if you decide you want to go through the exercise, that's at 3 o'clock today, and we have to talk about who you are and what you think. What are the components that make who you are, that are excellent, and then let's create a black hole value proposition, and then let's go after that. Yes, Jamie, question.
Okay.
What?
Wait on the mic.
It's not a question, but I think, so and I'll say this quickly, but I'm very passionate about it. All of us can brand, or I don't have a hospice, but we can all brand our organization. We can brand our hospice. We can go out and try and increase our patient census, all of that. We're talking to the wrong group. So in real life world, all we need to be doing is educating the public on what hospice is, because there's such a low population who actually knows what hospice is. So there's no point in us selling our hospice or our organization when most of the country doesn't even know what hospice is. They don't know what palliative care is. And then when I'm working with hospices, you go back to having the passion of what you're doing and making sure your people understand that. But do they? Can you explain the difference between palliative care and hospice? Can you explain why we all need to be using this? Can you explain why everyone is so excited about birth and everyone wants to be there and be a part of it, but we're not celebrating death? We're not sharing that experience with people. So I get what you're saying, but like there's a way bigger problem, which is why are we trying to sell our organization when no one even knows what hospice is? So start there too. Do community outreach, be a part of something way bigger so that then when you're trying to sell Cedar Valley Hospice, they know what hospice is and they know why that's a value to them.